Conrad Murray, one of the last people to see Michael Jackson alive. Murray was Jackson's personal physician.
Statements are just minutes away in the trial of Michael Jackson.
And on September 27, 2011, Murray would go on trial in Los Angeles, accused of giving Jackson drugs, including the powerful anesthetic propofol that caused Jackson's death.
Let me call the case of the people of the state of California, plaintiff versus Conrad Robert Murray, defendant.
Ladies and gentlemen, the evidence in this case will show
District Attorney David Walgren laid out the prosecution's case.
Michael Jackson trusted his life to the medical skills of Conrad Murray. That misplaced trust in the hands of Conrad Murray cost Michael Jackson his life.
To help prove their case, prosecutors presented two very different portraits of the pop legend. From a vibrant singer, dancer, and entertainer on stage, to a completely different person behind the scenes.
To Michael Jackson.
Then, midway through opening arguments, a stunning moment. The voice of Michael Jackson, as he'd never been heard before.
If you believe my show, I want to say he's the greatest entertainer in the world.
Jackson sounded fragile, impaired, incapable.
You may be seated.
And that's just what Kenny Ortega feared. Ortega was directing the most anticipated show in decades, with a star he feared wasn't up to it. But Murray insisted he was in charge of Jackson's health.
He said I should stop trying to be an amateur doctor and psychologist and be the director and allow Michael's health to him.
Those were the words of Conrad Murray.
As close.
And on June 25th, that meant helping Jackson get to sleep. Based on the affidavit, Dr. Murray's efforts to get Jackson to sleep began with a 10-milligram tablet of Valium around 1:30 a.m. It didn't work. So according to the affidavit, Dr. Murray injected the singer with an anti-anxiety drug. By 3 a.m., however, Jackson was still awake, so Murray told police he tried another drug, a sedative. That didn't work either. Murray told investigators at 10:40 a.m., he gave the pop legend 25 milligrams of propofol, a powerful surgical anesthetic, finally putting Jackson to sleep. But soon after, all hell broke loose. To describe the scene firsthand,
Alberto Alvarez.
security guard Alberto Alvarez.
He was laying on his back with his hands extended out. I observed that his eyes were slightly open or open, and his mouth was open.
Alvarez said Murray was frantic and vague about Jackson's condition.
I asked Dr. Conrad Murray what happened, and he said he had a reaction. He had a bad reaction.
In the midst of the chaos, Alvarez spotted Jackson's children in the doorway.
And they were right behind me, and Paris screamed out, "Daddy." Dr. Conrad Murray said, "Hurry, don't let them see their dad like this."
We heard about Paris breaking down. Very powerful visual. That's one idea.
Jim Moret is chief correspondent for Inside Edition.
From the perspective of a juror and as a parent, can you imagine seeing your own father lying there, most likely dead, with his eyes wide open?
We have a gentleman here that needs help, and he's not breathing yet. He's not breathing, and we're trying to pump him, but he's not.
Okay, how old is he?
Finally, at 12:22 p.m., Alvarez called 911.
These observations.
As they waited for an ambulance, Murray asked Alvarez for more help.
He reached over and grabbed a handful of vials, and then he reached out to me and said, "Here, put these in a bag."
Jackson was officially pronounced dead at 2:26 p.m., June 25th, 2009. A direct result, said prosecutors, of mistakes, delays, and recklessness by Dr. Conrad Murray.
2 bottles of lorazepam, lidocaine bottle,
D.A. Walgren added into evidence each vial and bottle found at Jackson's house.
Flumazino,
One
ephedrine,
after
20 milliliter propofol bottles.
another.
To take a patient with Valium, lorazepam, midazolam, and propofol, and to leave them unattended in that state is medical abandonment.
Murray, of course, saw things quite differently, providing his version of events in a police interview recorded just days after Jackson's death.
Full name? Conrad Robert Murray.
It was Jackson, Murray said, who told him all about propofol and insisted he use it to ease Jackson's crippling insomnia.
He knew that that was the only thing that worked for him. I constantly cautioned him and, claims Murray, tried to wean him from the drug. Still, Jackson pressed for propofol on the day he died. He said, I can't function if I don't sleep. So I agreed that I would switch over to the propofol.
Then, Murray said, he sat at Jackson's side.
I monitored him, saw his oxygen saturation, heart rate, everything looked stable. Then I needed to go to the bathroom. Then I came back to his bedside and I was stunned in the sense that he wasn't breathing.
Michael Jackson.
The defense maintained that it wasn't Murray who administered the fatal dose. It was Jackson himself.
When Dr. Murray left the room, Michael Jackson self-administered a dose of propofol that, with the lorazepam, created a perfect storm in his body that killed him instantly.
The defense said it was the final fatal move for a man with a tortured history of substance abuse.
I specialize in addiction medicine.
Dr. Robert Waldman reviewed records from Jackson's dermatologist. In the months before his death, Jackson got frequent treatments and lots of painkillers.
I believe there's evidence that he was probably addicted to opioids.
For the Jackson family, they were hard words to hear.
And they sat in that courtroom and listened to testimony that their son and brother was a drug addict. And often they had to leave, but they were always there the next day.
The addiction, the insomnia, the desperation were so great, said defense experts, that Jackson swallowed powerful pills by the handful.
That's enough to put 6 of you to sleep.
But was Murray responsible for Jackson's fatal overdose? As the opposing attorneys gave their closing arguments, 2 very different answers emerged.
Ladies and gentlemen, the evidence in this case is overwhelming that Conrad Murray acted with criminal negligence, that Conrad Murray caused the death of Michael Jackson, that Conrad Murray left Prince, Paris, and Blanket without a father.
Dr. Murray.
The defense insisted that Murray was driven by his own naive desire to help.
He thought he could help Michael Jackson succeed. He could help him sleep normally. He believed that. He was wrong. He was wrong. Because Dr. Murray had no control over this situation, because what was happening in the background, he was just a little fish in a big, dirty pond.
Finally, it all rested with the jury. 2 different versions, one man dead, and another's freedom hanging in the balance.
And we're following the breaking news this hour. A verdict in the involuntary manslaughter trial of Dr. Conrad Murray.
We, the jury in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Conrad Robert Murray, guilty of the crime of involuntary manslaughter.
After his conviction, Murray was sentenced to 4 years in prison. Coming up, claims that the promoters behind Michael Jackson's tour were responsible for Murray's negligence.
The AEG defendants were negligent in hiring, retaining, or supervising Dr. Conrad Murray, and that ultimately led to the death of Michael Jackson.
All I wanna say